Okay, I saw Wrinkle in Time earlier. I had to take a bit of a break to eat. Look, I'm hungry and I'm a fat guy. I need food, okay? Anyway, I should point out that I have not read the book A Wrinkle in Time, so I'm not as devout as I know the fan base of something like this is. So do try to appreciate that. I will say this film actually begins with a message from the director. She comes on screen, thanks everyone for coming to the screening, and talks about finding light in the dark and standing up for yourself and things like that. And it's like, oh man, I hope this movie doesn't stink, because that was really nice of her to do something like that. Thankfully, the movie does not stink. I'll say that right off the bat. Begins with a young girl named Megan, and her father, Alex Murray, and he's a research scientist. Her mother is also a research physicist, and they're basically working on the idea of finding a way to transport yourself faster than light and faster than modern day space travel can afford. And it's called tesseracting. And again, it's kind of teleportation and time travel. Basically, it's take the time stream and, quote, wrinkle it, and it will enable you to get to the point that you wish to be at faster than usual. She also, her mother, I believe, is supposed to be pregnant. They talk about a baby brother being on the way, but she didn't look pregnant. That's the one thing, she didn't look pregnant, so I thought maybe it was adopted. The brother winds up being named Charles Wallace. But 4 years go by, and it turns out that something happened, and Alex Murray has disappeared. And this has sort of resulted in Megan basically being an outcast in school. She's being bullied. Charles Wallace also, to an extent, also gets bullied, but he sort of takes it in stride. He actually hears but at one point, though, he hears two teachers ruminating about Alex's disappearance and saying, like, oh, he just abandoned his kids. Oh, and he takes the time to stand up for it. This results, though, in Megan getting into a physical altercation with a bully played by Rowan Blanchard. And she gets brought before the principal, and like I said, this is a routine thing apparently that happens. But in the process, I'm just going to call him Charles. Charles and Megan wind up meeting a boy named Calvin. And Charles sees something in him and asks him to sort of come along with this, because he also has met a woman who refers to herself as Mrs. Whatsit. And she's part of a group that also includes Mrs. Who and Mrs. Witch. Mrs. Who is Mindy Sterling, Mrs. Whatsit is Reese Witherspoon, and Mrs. Witch is Oprah. And through these machinations, they sort of find their own way to begin tessering through time and space in search of Alex Murray, because they heard Alex's call from somewhere. They don't know. They weren't able. They knew it was tied to Earth, but they didn't know where in the universe it came from. So they set about trying to track him down. They stop off briefly on a planet called Uriel, and they use a lot. This thing is really, really fantasy set. It turns out, like, you can talk to Flop, or if you just try hard enough and they try to get some directions, it's like, oh, he went this way. We saw him. He went this way, and Mrs. Whatsit turns herself into like a sort of flying plant deity. Like I said, this is a fantasy movie, and takes off with the three kids, and they see this large kind of dark crack form in the sky, and Mrs. Witch explains that this is darkness from a place called, just a sec here. Okay, Kamazats. I may be winging that. It is home to an evil entity known as the It. And the It is responsible for all darkness throughout the universe. And they said, if we're going to need to narrower focus down here because we can't just be bouncing around all the time. So they have to go see a seer played by Zach Galifianakis. And kind of along the way, like, Megan is sort of struggling. Like, everyone, when they test her or teleport, they feel like this glow and this warm embrace, and everything is fun and grand, except for Megan, who just gets slammed straight into the ground. And she talks for a brief moment with Mrs. Witch, and basically says, it's because she has low self-esteem. She's an outcast in school, and like I said, she's bullied, and she says there are days I wake up and I wish I was someone else or was in a different body or just something to that effect. And and this is basically what keeps hindering them back, but eventually the seer works with Megan, and they're able to track down that Alexander is in the It. He's on Cosmataz. I'm just going to call it the It from now on. Basically, Megan now wants to go there, but the witch, the Mrs. What do they call themselves? Yeah, the Mrs. Yeah. The three W's. They don't want to go there because they know their powers are going to be weakened there, and they say we need to go back to Earth and we need to regroup. It's best to do that, and Megan says no, and as a result, her power is such that it overwhelms them, and they wind up getting teleported into the It. Basically, through some events in the It, they come across this guy who claims to know Megan's father, Mr. Murray. And at this point, suddenly, like, Charles Wallace goes with him, and he has, like, this sudden heel turn. Like, he gets possessed by the It. And it's because Charles Wallace is angry that, his father up and left him. He's never known him. Why should I care about him? I did this for some other reason. And I guess this is probably the point where I talk a little bit about the characterization in this movie. There's one more thing before I get to the characterization. There's one point where, to explain how powerful the darkness in the It is, Miss Witch talks with Megan and puts her hand and basically shows her what the It does, and it shows the evil spreading throughout the universe, and it hits Earth, and you see it affects her principal, who has to deal with jealous teachers who are angry that he got promoted over them and are basically plotting to stab him in the back, and maybe that's why he's hard on her. And she sees the Rowan Blanchard character, the bully, and you see stress from basically media in general. It hints that she might have an eating disorder because she wants to be perfect, and you see her holding up a magazine and looking at herself in a mirror, and again, like, I think you kind of hint that there's probably something wrong there, and again, you're probably deflecting that anger onto Megan. And then it goes to Calvin's father, and this is where I'll get into the characterization, because unfortunately there's a bit of a lack of characterization in this. Calvin, he just kind of shows up and he's kind of going along with everything. There's a little, obviously, the pointedly obvious thing is he's got the hots for Megan. Yeah, it's not even hinted. It's basically, he comes out and he actually compliments her hair, and she sort of, don't do that, no, you're gonna ruin your reputation, because it turns out the Rowan Blanchard character is her neighbor, and she sees the two of them. It's like, you're going to be put out socially. You're going to wind up getting bullied just like me. And he sort of says, oh, try meeting my dad. And again, we see with his father, who is this ultra perfectionist for whom even getting a B+ is a failure. And you kind of get a little bit, okay, you see where this stress comes from sometimes. And like I said, unfortunately, that's kind of the most characterization Calvin gets. There's a part of the trailer that got edited out of the movie for some reason. There's a point where Megan is actually explaining her father's theories through everything. Basically it's, here's a straight line, and how do you get from here to here without taking a long time? But what if you take it and you wrinkle it? Yeah, you wrinkle the time stream, and now suddenly the 2 points are a lot closer, so you can travel faster. And that's not in the movie. Instead, they cut it out and they replace it with a flashback to a symposium that Mr. and Mrs. Murray are giving. And it sort of demonstrates that Alex has this kind of leap without looking mentality, and his wife, whose name escapes me at the moment, his wife is rather, no, you need to ease people into this. You can't just come out and say, oh, well, we found a way for you to teleport through time and space automatically just by thinking. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, it doesn't, yeah. You need to, like I said, you need to ease people into the idea, build them into the notion that they can, so that they can accept it. You can't just walk out because you'll get laughed at, which is what happened. And it doesn't work as well because, again, I think it takes away some of the character development for why Calvin is there, other than, like I said, he's got the hots for Megan. Charles Wallace, his inexplicable heel turn that comes out of this. We don't get any of that. We don't get any real build towards that. It kind of comes out of nowhere. Yeah, you could argue a little bit it's the it doing it, but anyway. Eventually, they get Calvin and Megan get led into a room where Megan manages to piece together that her father is located in the room, and she finds him. He explains everything that happened. That he's been missing for 4 years. Let's see in my notes here. Alex. Yeah. Anyway, the three kids. Sorry, here again. Like I said, Alex tries to reason with Charles Wallace, and Charles Wallace isn't having any of it. He says, "Now I need to take you to see to see how powerful it truly is." And he winds up dragging them, and Alex kind of basically tries to tesser everyone away at the last minute. But Megan again fights back and manages to stay with them, and it turns out it really wants Megan because she's very powerful, and again she can spread darkness throughout the universe and everything. I think again, like its motivations aren't exactly clear sometimes too. Again, a bit of a lack of characterization. Like, Megan's the only one that really gets any sort of development in this. But eventually Megan sort of squares off against her brother, and when the three witches, when Witch, Who, and What's It left, they left with giving gifts, particularly to Megan, out of it. Who left a pair of glasses that allow Megan to kind of see things and piece together formulations from where they are, or see how things are made. And What's It leaves the gift of Megan's faults. And Megan eventually realizes, my faults are what make me who I am. Like, it tries to tempt Megan, and he says, we'll send this back. It's you, it's perfect. You're pretty, and your hair's straight, and you're smart, and exactly, you'll immediately turn heads, and you'll be popular. And she sort of realizes, like, no, I don't want that. I want to be me. And she sort of starts using the fact that she says, she promised to love her brother no matter what. And she knows her brother loves her because he wouldn't have brought her along on this if he didn't care about her and wanted her to be happy. And eventually the power of love wins out. She saves Charles, and it is not exactly destroyed. It's just beaten back, and it allows for enough light to come through for Who, Witch, and What's It to return, and then everyone basically tessers back to Earth, and Megan actually gets a good tesser instead of just crashing into the planet again. And basically that's kind of how it all ends. There's a little bit, obviously, the family gets reunited. Calvin basically kind of says goodbye, and the Rowan Blanchard character sees them again, but now she's not going to hide it. Megan's not going to hide this anymore. They don't kiss. I can't, guys. Kind of through it all, you see that she's also attracted to Calvin, and it would have been nice if they just kissed. Like, just build it up to the dang kiss. Like, that's what people do. Again, like, This is technically a family film, so I'm not saying they need to like make out or anything, but just a little thing like that would be fine. It wouldn't exactly. You're not warping children's minds by showing that. Anyway, like I said, overall, there are parts of this movie. It's good, and I enjoyed it, but it does have some big faults. I talked about the characterization earlier. I'll also say this. That lack of characterization leads to the plot getting a little unwieldy. It's quite literally like, Calvin's going along for this ride for some reason automatically. He's not questioning anything. It's like, they meet the three W's and almost immediately they test her to a different planet, and then they test her to Orion to find the seer, and then they test her to this other place, and then the it shows up, and then this happens, and it's all really rapid fire, and I wish they had maybe taken a little bit of time to slow down and again try to build up character a little bit more. Again, like the plot moves a little too quickly, but other than that, the performances in it are pretty good. The kids are... Charles Wallace gets a little annoying at times, but he's not uber annoying. Everyone else is great. Reese Witherspoon is great as Mrs. Whatsit, and Mindy Sterling is okay as Mrs. Who. Unfortunately, her character gets by mainly by quoting other people. That's her shtick. Oprah is good. Oprah's Oprah. And like I said, the cast for the most part is pretty good. Chris Pine is alright as the dad. I think you kind of get the idea of what the dad's fault is. So everything's good in that. Excuse me. So yeah, overall, I think I'm going to give A Wrinkle in Time a B.
The critics call it the season's funniest new sitcom. Open all night.
You won't be disappointed.
Then,
I'm fired.
I got some news that'll cheer you up. I've got 1 week to live. Just kidding.
making a living.
Okay, trailer time, and well, there's not too terribly much new, unfortunately. First off, we have the Miracle season again, which, if you don't remember, that's the one about the volleyball team that loses its captain and rallies to come back to win a championship or something. It looks like a religious film, but I don't know if it necessarily is. I don't want to jump to conclusions on something like that. After that, we have Incredibles 2. Then Ready Player One, which I know I've talked about, but I can't remember if I ever covered the trailer on here or not. But anyway, after that we have Show Dogs. Yeah. Basically, Turner and Hooch meets Miss Congeniality. From the director of Beverly Hills Chihuahua, so you know, there's quality involved in that. After that, we had Avengers Infinity War, Part 1 again, and then we had Solo, A Star Wars Story again. Next, okay, so moving on, like I said, don't know if I'm going to get around to seeing Gringo, unfortunately. I'm starting in the early script stages for the Nova review, and I know it's going to be a long one, so I need time to actually try to get that done. Next movie review, well, the next video is going to be the Fastlane recap and review. Next movie review should be Tomb Raider. Then after that will be the Nova review. Basically, for the rest of March, movie reviews are going to be Tomb Raider, oh crud, what comes up after Tomb Raider? Pacific Rim Uprising, sorry. And Tomb Raider, Pacific Rim Uprising, and then Ready Player One. April, I'm not entirely sure because everything got shifted around because Avengers Infinity War was coming out in May. It's now gotten pushed back to April. Rampage is going to be coming out at one point in April, and now it's been pushed back to an earlier point in April. So I need to see what is all shaking out from that. So see you all next time.
Hey guys, is there a movie you want me to tackle? Even if it's some stinker like Baywatch or the Emoji Movie or something else? Check out my Patreon at Sleepy Time for Cat Productions. See how you can make that happen.